I'm Mark Goldston. I'm with YPOG LA, and I'm the executive chairman of the Beachbody company, and I'm also general partner and co-founder of Athletic Propulsion Labs LLC, which is a worldwide global athletic footwear company. I think every company essentially today is a tech company. It used to be they'd say, are you an internet company or are you an offline company? Are you a direct-to-consumer company or are you a brick-and-mortar company? We're way beyond that today. I mean, fundamentally, every company in some way, shape, or form is using technology to drive its business. I think every CEO is required to have some basic fundamental knowledge of the technology that their company uses. You don't have to be a coder. You don't have to understand the tech stack per se, but you need to understand from a CapEx standpoint, why am I spending all this money on these servers? Why am I spending all this money on these software licenses? Why does it take me so long to make a modification to my system? Why do I have bugs that have to be fixed and who fixes them? What if I need to acquire a company and they've got a different platform than we operate on? They're on one software, it could be an Oracle platform, somebody else on an ATG platform. You might say, well, what do? Do I run legacy systems and follow parallel paths with everything I acquire? Or do I find some way to merge them all together onto a common platform? You don't need to be a technologist, but you need to understand the basic fundamental principles of platform architectures in these companies and the hardware and the software that's required to make those systems work. And as a CEO, it's incumbent upon you to be a master at resource allocation. So that's currency, so it's capital resource allocation, it's manpower allocation, it's facility allocation, and it's technology allocation. And if you abdicate that, and I don't mean delegate it, because all CEOs delegate because that's your job. But if you abdicate the technology to the CTO or the individual who runs your tech team and says, it's not what I do, so he or she is just going to handle it. If there's a problem, they'll let me know. That doesn't work anymore. Because every company has got technology so intertwined into what it's doing that it's really incumbent upon you as a CEO to fully understand what our technology does, where it stands in the life cycle of technology, meaning is it going to become obsolete quickly? Because if it is, you're going to have a big CapEx sitting in front of you. You need to understand, is my company's tech stack a Mr. Potato Head that I could plug things into easily, or is it a brick that cannot have things plugged into it, and therefore I'm either limited as to what it is I can acquire or merge into, or I need to undergo a massive re-architecture so that everybody's on a common platform. And those are things that CEOs, 15, 17, 20 years ago, really didn't have to worry about as much because the technology was so complicated that only the CTO and his or her tech team could really understand it. It's not like that today. We've simplified technology massively. The brilliance of companies like Apple is that they took complex technologies and processes, and what did they do? They created pictorial icons. So essentially, you click an icon to perform a function. You want to use your phone, you want to browse the internet, you want to take a photo, you want to go to your settings, you want to check the weather. It's all iconic. So they've basically taken, platforming for dummies to the umpteenth level of communication. Well, I think a lot of companies, as they're preparing their executive officers for the understanding of their technology, need to do an equivalent task to what Apple does with its icons, which is you need to understand this is what we need to do. This is how we do it. These are the resources required to make it happen. And these are the opportunities or the limitations that platform stack will allow us as we go into the marketplace and either try to expand our company or acquire other companies into ours. You need to understand that. And you got to not be intimidated by it, which means you have to have people in your tech team who understand how to distill these things into simple to follow terms. You can't run away from it. You can't put it aside and say that's somebody else's problem. Not acceptable in today's world. If you're a CEO, you're essentially a conductor of the orchestra. That's your job. You've got great oboe players, great violinists, great horn section, and those are the people who are the heads of your functional areas and the people behind them. So your job is to understand the music, understand who needs to play what when, and you conduct that orchestra. The reality of it is, every person who conducts an orchestra should have at some point been a master at one of those musical areas within the orchestra. Maybe you were a violinist, maybe you were an oboe player, maybe you were a trumpet player. But if you've never played a musical instrument, not that you can't be a conductor, but it would be unlikely that that would be your path. That's the exact same thing being a CEO. Either you came up through marketing, or you came up through finance, or you came up through operations and logistics, or you came up through technology. But you came up through a discipline that somehow you mastered enough to allow you to get out of the siloed, functional suite that you were in and into the C-suite. Well, as you look at technology and as you think of yourself as a conductor, and if you're like the majority of CEOs who did not come up through the tech silo, you came up through marketing, sales, operations, finance, logistics, etc., then what you have to do is to say, I need to get basic fundamental understanding of all of the other silos that lead into my C-suite. That's your job. Your job is not to be a better financial person than your CFO, but you must understand finance. You must understand marketing. You must understand logistics. You must understand management skills, and you must understand technology. So my advice would be, don't be intimidated by your lack of training in technology or by its apparent complexity. Make sure you have the people who work for you, who are in those areas, who can perform those functions better than most. Human nature is that we spend less time on the things we either don't like or are not familiar with. And that's the big mistake that you make as a CEO. You have to go to the areas that you either don't like or are not familiar with, and you need to familiarize yourself enough so that you can sit atop that organization, preside, hence the name president, and that you can make an informed executive decision based on an area that is not your personal area of expertise. And normally, the number one area where that would apply is technology. I was the antithesis of someone who was technologically savvy. Antithesis. Even though I had a lot of math skills and science skills, I didn't have tech skills. It's not what I did. So what did I do in 1999, early 99? I went into this thing called the internet, which was just getting going, which was completely dependent upon technology. And I had no knowledge of technology. And I went to a company that had 20 people called Net Zero. And I became the first chairman and CEO of this raw startup, which was an internet service provider that gave you free internet access. And it would offset the cost with a toolbar that would show you advertising every 30 seconds. So I ran that company and we built it out. It became one of the most successful companies on the internet. We morphed it into a conglomerate called United Online. We bought about 16 companies. We bought Juno. We bought FTD, the huge flower company. We bought Classmates.com. You name it, we bought it. We put it together under this umbrella that we would pick up sort of fallen icons whose marketing and or technology and or financial structures caused them to fall from grace. And we would go in and we would fix them, build them up, make them super profitable. But every time I bought a company, they had a different technological platform than the company that I was running. So at one point, we were running 6, 7, 8 legacy systems to just keep all of these companies running together. And our massive task was to try to get as many of them as possible onto a central operating platform. So I became not a software coder, but I became something of an expert at technology over that 15-year period, just using intellect, resources, asking the right questions, and having great people essentially teach me what I needed to know. You know, I've been a CEO for 30 plus years. That really helped to round out my skill set, because that's something that most people shy away from. And I chose not to.